The Deep End Podcast. Welcome to the Deep End Podcast, brought to you by Waters Church in North Attleboro, Massachusetts. The Deep End is where we go deeper in the scriptures to empower our walk with God. If you're watching on Facebook Live, we're glad you joined us, and we encourage you to be a part of the conversation in the comments below. If you're listening in on SoundCloud or your podcast app, be sure to stay connected with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Let's go live to Pastor Tim Hatch as we get started with today's podcast. This is The Deep End.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining us on Facebook Live. And if you watch us on our weekly podcast, we thank you for watching on that. Well, my name is Cheryl Hatch, and I am Pastor Tim's wife. And today is Wednesday Women Takeover on the podcast. I'm sorry we don't have the sexy beards or the cool leather jackets. Sorry, guys. But today happens to be
International Day of the Girl.
Yeah, so today is estrogen-filled room.
Ooh, girl power. Yeah.
So
Take it
joining
over.
me today in the studio, I have Nicole Nichols, and she runs our children's ministry. And we also have Marianne Parsons, a.k.a.
Shane's wife.
Okay, so today we just want to give props to all the women at Waters Church who make the weekend experience what it
Absolutely.
is. You know, there's a lot of women at Waters Church who do so much over the
Yes,
weekend.
absolutely.
And, you know, we see a lot of male leadership at this church. We see a lot of male volunteers and a lot of male dominance. But there's a lot of women at Waters Church who do so much
There
and
is.
are awesome. So.
Absolutely.
You know, and just going on that, I just want to say, you know, in a society where there is a real breakdown in the male leadership, this is why we strategically do have our church very male dominant and led by men.
Yes.
We believe it's a healthy way to lead a church, and so we do that intentionally.
Yes.
But we are also a church who really values women and women who are godly and spiritual and who can lead. All right. So, and what is today, Marianne?
Again, it's International Day of the Girl, and I have a little bit of a tidbit for you all.
Oh, great.
Yep. I don't know if you know Vern Mitchell.
Never
if you ever heard of
her.
She's the first professional female baseball player. She struck out Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig.
Woohoo!
Whoa, you go Vern.
Well, I have one too. The two highest IQ scores recorded in history belonged to women. Not a
Wow.
surprise.
We're smart. We're smart.
Intelligent.
We're smart.
All right. And did you know that women say an average of 13,000 words per day?
I believe it.
But I don't believe that, more than men, sorry, more
Yeah?
than men, 13,000 words
Wow.
more than men.
Wow.
So I don't think that's true in my case.
It's mine. I talk a lot.
I have a
Ask my
husband who really likes to talk and talk. But no, us women, you know, we're unique. And we have a lot to offer. So today we're
Yeah.
just going to share some of our thoughts, and
Awesome.
I wanted to have two of our staff members here in our studio along with me just to share a little bit about what their role is in ministry and how they affect Waters Church. So, you know, Nicole, you are a young single woman at Waters Church, and I wanted you to share some of the challenges that you find being single and also being single and in the ministry. Share with us a little bit about that.
I think one of the main issues that just single women in ministry face, like in this church and in church in general, is the fact that we get overlooked as single women. I think we kind of face this pressure of, okay, you're here, now get married, have babies, that's it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we do that.
Yeah,
to
that's
you.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like, okay, but there's so much we can do. We have so much potential here as women who have a lot of time to give to ministry, and I think that
Right.
we have a unique influence on younger women. So if we're having a conversation with a 16-year-old who, you know, desperately wants to be in a relationship, like if I'm a married woman talking to her about, oh, you're good on your own, she's like, okay, but you're married, so.
Right.
Whereas
Right.
like I can tell her like, hey, like you have so much to offer on your own. You have so much to offer, so much to give, and I just think that that's really cool, and that there's just so much that we do. We can give so much time to ministry, so much time just to the church, and we're here willing to serve. And I don't think,
and you know, in fact, in 1 Corinthians 7, Paul talks about being single and how you can give all your work to the gospel. And I think you are such an example of that, because you really do such a great job with that, Nicole. And
Absolutely
we thank you for that.
Thank you.
And so you also lead a small group.
I do.
And almost all of those girls in your group are single women. And so, you know, I want you to just speak on how the being a single woman affects leading a small group of women, and how does that, being in a group together, how does that change, you know, or affect the lives of those women?
I think it's really cool because, again, like I said, we have a unique perspective being single women. I think that I have found that I can have a certain level of influence with the women that I lead, and I enjoy it because it holds me accountable. So I think as single women, we face unique challenges, and a lot of those, I mean, our world is a very tempting world to get lost in. And I think that it holds me accountable. It forces me to say, hey, like, I can't engage in certain behaviors because I have women that I'm leading. And they, you know, integrity is a big thing, especially with single women, especially in women groups, that, you know, if you're going to lead somebody, they need to know that you're legitimate.
That's all.
And so, like, it forces me to just live my life in a way where
You can be accountable.
Right, I can be held accountable, and then also lead these women with love and not condemn them for who they are, but just like to love them and genuinely like be a part of their lives.
Yeah, and you know, that's important to note, that there are so many different women coming into your groups and into our small groups from different walks of life, different stages in their spiritual walk. And it's good to have somebody like you who's been in this journey for quite a while, coming alongside somebody who's new to the faith and new to Christianity, and you're there able to help lead them and guide them. And I think that's really great. About being real.
Thank you.
Yeah.
She's real.
She is real.
Real, Nicole.
You know, and also in a society where there's so much loneliness amongst, I mean, every age group, every gender, there's just so much loneliness, and a lot of the social media has lied to us, and you know, especially to women, I feel like makes women feel like we have to be a certain way, we have to look a certain way, we have to act a certain way. And so, you know, can you speak a little bit to that, about how that being in a group together, having that friendship, how does that help?
I think it helps a lot because, as I said, like as single women, one of our unique challenges is that we don't have a family to go home to at night. We're not going home to a husband and any of that. So we do encounter that, like that different level of loneliness and exhaustion on our own. I think being able to have a group of girls, I mean, like I love my small group because we pray for each other, we love each other. And there's just such a pure friendship. It's like friendship on steroids. And it's just really cool to be able to have that community of people. I mean, we do things together for Thanksgiving, for fall festivities. We have Christmas events together. We just become a family with each other. So I think that's really cool. And I think girls benefit off of having
Other
that
girls,
community.
yeah.
Definitely. That's fantastic.
Having sisters.
Yes.
All right. So speaking of small groups, I want to now transition over to my friend Marianne, who runs our small groups here at Waters Church. You know, if you think that our small groups are just thrown together or there's no work involved, then I have to tell you, there is so much that is involved with getting our small groups organized. And Marianne Parsons does a phenomenal job with that. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes, so much work put into running these small groups, and she does a fantastic job. And I think the small groups are is what weaves our church together. It's so important that, I mean, because we could all gather here on the weekend and go, but it would be nothing unless we had relationships. And I think this is what binds us together as people.
Exactly.
So I want you just to share a little bit about you know, what is involved with planning our small groups. What does it take to get them to where they are?
Sure. Well, first of all, to be a small group leader, it's a process. We have to be diligent in how we select our leaders. We don't just randomly select them or just ask people. We have a process that we go through. First of all,
really? You mean you don't just pluck somebody from the congregation and say, hey, you...
No.
Okay.
Right. No, we don't do that. Reason being is because, you know, you could have 100 small groups. And if not all 100 small groups have healthy leaders, then you might as well not have any small groups at all. Because
and we've had that
Yes.
We have had
Rogue.
our little rogue go on your own, doing your wacky.
off the wall.
Right.
Off their own way. So we have a process. So first of all, you really need to be in a group for a fair amount of time.
Okay.
And your small group leader does approach you and ask you if you want to apprentice. And that means that you want...
They see something in you.
Yes, the I see in you that, we always hear about. They see something in you that leads them to believe that you'd be a good small group leader.
Yeah.
Mostly caring about, you have to have just a love of people, I think. That's one of the key components, I think, to a small group leader is you have to love people and be relational with others. So we have a process. They go through an apprentice. They take on the role of a leader while the leader is still there with them. And then once the leader feels that they're ready to go on, they take a training. So there's a training session that happens.
Okay.
And I usually do that myself. It's a 2-hour training, and actually have one tonight. We have like 14 leaders coming
That's
tonight,
awesome.
so I'm excited
really
about
cool.
that.
That's
Fantastic.
great. So how many small groups do we currently have?
Currently, we have 73 small groups. We have a little over 500 members of our church plugged into a group.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
it's
That's
great
really
to get connected. Absolutely.
So can you speak to somebody who's not in a small group and maybe apprehensive about joining one, and just tell us a little bit about what goes on?
Well, first of all, it's sermon based. So we take the weekend's message and bring it into the home.
So no wacky, weird Bible studies.
No Bible studies, no preaching on Revelation that we have no idea what we're talking about.
Good.
We take Pastor Tim's message, or whoever the preacher is,
Okay.
on the weekend, and we take that message, we bring it home into our homes on the weekdays, weeknight or morning, whatever happens to be the group, and we talk about it. We have a conversation, just like we're having now, conversation about the message. But it's not just that. It's also fellowship.
Yeah.
We have fellowship. It's building a relationship, so we're meeting each other's needs. And I say that.
Speak a little bit about what goes on in your small group.
Well, we like to eat a lot. we have an excellent baker.
That's
She
good.
knows who she is, and she's probably listening right now.
Oh, good.
Kudos to
Elizabeth
you, our
Fisher.
baker. Anyway, we eat. We like to eat. That's how we break our ice. We start off with some food.
Yeah, that's great.
It helps because we have conversation. Hey, how was your week? Oh yeah, what happened? At the job. Did you get the job? How's whatever's happening in the life, and it gives us an icebreaker.
That's
and
great.
then we sit around the table and we go over the message. Again, it's just a conversation. It's questions that are we bounce around and everybody has a chance to
It's
answer.
also a way for everybody who listened to the message to relate that to their life.
Yes,
And
absolutely. It's fantastic.
Even in my small group, I have to say that you hear it one way, but when everybody else kind of adds their perspective and talks about it and says how they've applied it to their life, it actually enriches it. And so I really take a lot from that.
Yeah.
So, there's obviously requirements to be a small group leader.
Absolutely.
So I want you just to share a little bit about what those are.
Yes. Very important that you serve on the weekend in some capacity or another. That's very important. Especially what you were talking about earlier about being an example. You're a leader. You have to lead by example. Yeah. Another requirement is that you need to be baptized. If you're going to tell somebody they need to go to baptism class, I hope you have to have been baptized. Obviously, you have to have a relationship with Jesus Christ.
Yes.
And also, one big one is that we just cannot afford to, we just can't venture off from is tithing. Very important that you tithe.
Yeah,
as
and I'm
a
just going
leader.
to say right here in Luke 6:10-12, it says, if you cannot be trusted with earthly wealth, how can you be trusted with spiritual riches? And, we believe that our people, that the members of Waters Church are spiritual riches. And so we will never entrust somebody with you if they cannot be trusted with earthly wealth, which is biblical.
Very true. Another thing I want to say about small groups, too, as far as you're growing your relationship in Christ. But also you're meeting people's needs, and I have to give you the example. We have one small group that one of the ladies in the small group, she had a stroke, and now she's in a nursing home, and may or may not be coming out of the nursing home. I don't know. Praying that she does, but I don't know. So she can't make it to her small group every week. So once a month, her entire small group
That's awesome.
goes to the nursing home, visits her, and what a blessing it
That
is to
is.
her. Absolutely, that's
And,
so important.
I mean, we have endless stories of testimonies of what's been going
Yep.
on in our small groups. Even my own small group, I have to say, if one of us is discouraged, there's a whole group chat and everybody's encouraging each other, and it's a family. So now, speaking of
Absolutely.
families, we also have single women groups, we have single men groups, and we have groups of all ages, but we also have quite a few family
We
small
do.
groups.
Very important. Our family
Very
groups are very important because they're not as many of those as we like because
Right, 'cause
we have a lot of children.
I would say that the demographic of our church is families.
Yeah.
Blended families, small families, large families. We just have a lot of families. We have a lot of single moms, and so we really do appreciate and value our small groups for families. And do you want to speak a little bit on those?
Yeah, it's very important because, like you said, that we value the family. A lot of times what will happen is the small group leaders who have, children welcome, they'll put them in another room. Maybe somebody will come in, if they're too young, somebody will come and babysit them and
Right.
maybe even do some sort of lesson themselves.
Yeah.
But mainly, the kids are also becoming friends too. So they're building their relationships while you're building your own relationship with the adults.
Right. No, that's
Wash
great.
my hands.
So I'm going to swing back to Nicole, and so we were talking about families. So now I want to talk a little bit about the kids of Waters Church, since you run our children's ministry and doing a fantastic job, Nicole. I mean,
Yes.
I don't know if people think that they just show up here on Sunday morning and everything is just,
Miraculously
all you
awesome.
do is just zap your kid in and it's great. No, there is so much work that is involved
Absolutely.
in Waters Kids, and so much just strategic planning that goes into Waters Kids. And so I wanted you guys to get a little bit of an insider understanding of what it is that our staff does here on during the week, and then Nicole will share a little bit about what goes on during the weekend experience.
Okay.
So what goes into the planning during the week for Waters Kids?
Well, during the week we do a lot of paper planning, I guess you could call it. So we plan out our lessons, we plan out what we're going to be teaching the kids for the entire month. So we try to be a couple months out. So right now it's beginning of October and we are already halfway through November curriculum. We are already planning that entire month.
Awesome. And what curriculum do you use?
We use Orange.
Okay.
We love Orange because they're very organized, they are very media based, and they take kind of the psychology of how kids interact with the world around them and turn that into ministry. And I think it's so cool.
Yeah, that is. That's
They
very
look
cool.
at age groups and they're like, oh, this age group, they think like an artist. So they create and they like to play and they like to interact. So we're going to help them discover God that way. And I just think
Right.
that's amazing.
Oh,
So
it is.
we use that and we use that for each different age group. And we have lessons and we have activities and games provided that our volunteers can engage with the kids as well. And that just helps them to discover who God is.
Yeah.
So during the week, we're doing a lot of that. We're planning that. We're typing up curriculum. We're typing up lesson plans and distributing that.
And on the weekend, we have how many volunteers does it take to make those weekend experience work?
For one weekend of 3 services, we need about 76 volunteers.
Wow. That's a lot. That's a lot. And
that's a
that's a
lot of
lot
people.
on your part too, because you have to train all of those volunteers.
Right.
And just so everybody knows, when a volunteer shows up to volunteer, they don't have to do anything. Everything is, they have to interact with the kids and they have to, engage with the kids, but the prep work is already done. And so that's what I think is great. And if you're thinking of volunteering, we would love to have you join
Yes.
our team.
Yeah,
But yeah,
definitely.
We
there's
love
a lot of
volunteers.
preparation that goes into the planning work, the behind the scenes. So you also have a staff that works with you.
Yep, we've got 4 members of our staff. We have Carly, Michael, Shannon, and myself. And we have a blast planning for the kids.
That's awesome.
It's a lot of work, but we really do enjoy it.
Great.
We really do.
And
fun.
even so now a parent wants to drop their child off
Mhm.
on a Sunday morning and they don't know anything about Waters. This is their first time in. Walk us through exactly what's going to happen when you drop your kid off at Waters Church.
Well, if you've never been here before, then you would have to register your kids for the first time. Then you will ask for a couple tidbits of information that makes it easier for us to contact you, to know, who you are, who your family is. 'Cause we want to be involved. We don't want this to be a one and done deal. Like when you enter our doors, we care about you.
Yeah,
We care about you.
exactly.
Yep.
Your kid becomes a part of our family, and we value you. And so, depending on your kid's age group, they'll go to a different room, and what you're going to see in the beginning, regardless of which room, is you're going to see play.
Right.
We do play in the beginning, even though it looks like, oh, all these kids do is play. Are they learning a lesson? Are they doing anything? We do play strategically in the beginning because that's where kids get comfortable. They come in and they engage. That leaves an opening for the volunteer to say, hi, my name is, and what's your name, and what's your favorite color, and how old are you?
And I think our volunteers do a great job
Oh,
with
they're
that.
amazing. They
Yeah,
are
they
absolutely
really are.
incredible. So we go from play into worship where we sing and we dance, and depending on which room you're in, you might see a lot of bubbles during that time. You might see a lot of lights and a lot of movement. And that's a lot of fun. We teach the kids how to worship, and we tell them that, worship is a fun way to interact with God.
Yeah.
And we teach them all about that, and then we go into our story, which is
Media-based?
Media-based, yeah. Except for the red room, we have our storyteller, and they're just very animated characters who just take the lesson that we gave them and just make it into this amazing
That's fantastic. Sounds like
display.
fun.
Oh yeah, a lot of fun.
A lot different when 20 years ago we were given candy and thrown on a VeggieTale DVD.
Yeah.
And then I know in the red room we end with small groups, where that's where the kids, that's where most of their bonding happens. That's where most of their I didn't understand this. Can you tell me a little bit more about this? Or I really
So
want to tell
they're
you about my
basically
family.
kind of going over the message again in a smaller group with the leader.
In a way that they can understand, where they become less like a person as opposed to a number.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Those are the people who are going to notice when your kid hasn't been in for 2 weeks and be
Oh,
like,
that's
where is
great.
so and so? Like, I haven't seen you in forever, because that's their job. Their job is to notice your child.
Yeah, and so I just want to talk a little bit about your volunteers. I have to say we have amazing volunteers at Waters Church and committed. Some of our volunteers, just go above and beyond. And I want to also just speak on the fact that we have quite a few guy volunteers in our children's ministry, and in a society where there's such a breakdown in families, a lot of single moms and a lot of kids that are growing up without dad figures in their life, a male figures. We really value our male volunteers.
Oh, yes,
Absolutely.
definitely.
And I want you just to elaborate on that a little bit.
We want to be able to. Church is natural for women. Women naturally go to church. We like community. We'll come, we'll sing, we'll dance, we'll talk.
Right.
That's a very natural action for a woman, but I feel like it's less natural for a man. And I think it starts from when they're young. If you look at just the general structure of Sunday school, they see women. There's women in the nursery, there's women all the way up, and then there's women in the older rooms. And it's just, we want men to be able to take those, especially those older room roles where kids are learning to bond with leaders. We want men in there, so that we want men on stage. We want men dancing. We want men getting silly with these kids to show them that, yes, men do worship. Yes, men do pray. Yes, men do lead. So that when these kids interact with their world, they see I am a man and I can lead, and this is okay.
Yeah, and the men that we do have are fantastic.
Yes.
I've seen them in there, and the kids. It's funny to watch too when you have a female leader on stage, and then you and watch the kids interacting with the women, and then when you get a guy up there, it's just, every kid gets engaged with one of the male leaders.
And incidentally, speaking of men leaders, men should be stepping up to be small group leaders.
Yeah.
More men should step up for that. We encourage that.
Yeah,
right.
We're calling you to action.
We do have a question,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
We want some questions, so
okay,
please
so
send in your questions.
It says, love Waters Church, but was disappointed when you moved to the new building, stopped allowing children in service. Having grown up in the church, I look forward to that family time and benefited greatly from seeing adults in worship. What is the rationale for not allowing children under 12?
Well, that's a good question. And we don't ever want to offend anybody. That's not our goal. And we understand, yes, some people have really not liked this new rule that we have. But we have made it a commitment that we are going to do anything in our power to reach the lost for Christ. And so one of our biggest, it was a tough decision, because it is. You ultimately might ostracize certain people, but we felt that without having any distractions in our service was the best way to go about reaching people for the lost. Because let's face it, babies cry, moms get up, children are I'm sorry, I know there's going to be people that say, well, my kid understands, I'm sorry, but they don't. every child has to be reached on their level.
Yes.
We have such an amazing children's ministry, and we purposely spent a ton of money on that so that our kids would go in there and have an absolute blast. And Nicole will add to that.
And I think it adds to the experience when a child can come into some place and be noticed. I mean, if they're sitting in the sanctuary with you, that's great. They're having family time, but they're not being noticed by anyone else.
That's right. No,
And I
making
think
connections.
right. And I mean, your 12-year-old, well, if your kid is 12 and under, they're going into a room where someone knows their name, they know their favorite color, they understand who they are, and they can pray with them, they can interact with them during that entire time while you're having your service that's directed at you as well, I think.
And also they're able to build friendships with other kids.
Right.
So that is the rationale behind that. We really make no apologies for that, and we've seen such a growth in our children's ministry actually since we've been at this building, and doubled. Our ministry has doubled. So that's the answer. Do we have any more questions?
But there is one more. One woman did ask if there are high school, college age students, small groups. So I just want to answer that.
Okay.
We do have a wonderful group for college students, which meets on breaks and in the summers. So I can get that information to this person afterwards. But also for high school students, we have e-groups,
Awesome.
which is, well, actually, Nicole is really involved in that too. She's involved in everything. We love her.
That's great.
You want to touch on a little bit about what e-groups might be about, just so
Yeah.
the college, high school students might want to get involved?
Well, e-groups is a part of Elevate, which is our high school ministry. And Elevate is amazing. The kids come in and they interact, and it's really cool. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. The kids, they have a blast. And e-groups is a part of that. After the message, we break off into groups where we talk about the message, talk about life, talk about anything. And it's just based off small groups where we can just interact with you and get to know who you are, and we pray together and we care about you. And we have a lot of e-group leaders, and we are still building up our e-groups. And
That's
if you'd like to
awesome.
stop by and check it out, feel free.
Okay. Well, we didn't talk about Junior Elevate, which is also part of our children's ministry,
right.
and also Senior Elevate. So we also have Junior Elevate. Nicole, what ages are those?
Junior Elevate is for middle schoolers. So that's like right after you get out of Waters Kids, you would go into Junior Elevate. That's led by Noah Aguiar. And
Yeah, he does a great job.
Yes, he's fantastic.
right. And they're awesome. These kids are amazing. They're learning to claim their faith as their own. And so they're having discussions where they can discover while talking with each other. And these kids are amazing. They have these civil conversations that I think a lot of us adults, we would, be at each
Right.
other's throats for because of difference of opinions. But these kids are able to mentor their classmates and mentor each other and just say let's come to this conclusion together. And they're able to just create such a strong bond with each other for the cause of Christ. And they're just awesome.
Yeah,
And I think they have a blast in there.
Making
Yeah,
those
and-
connections.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yep. But
Well, I think that's all we have for today.
Oh,
Unless we have any more. Do we have any more questions?
feel free
Nope,
to bring them on.
not anymore right now. But if you have any questions out there, yeah, we'd love to answer them.
Mm-hmm.
But this is really different.
Yes.
Oh no, here comes. Oh no.
If you have any questions, ask Tim.
But yeah, I think I like the fact that we've been talking about small groups because I think it's really important to get people involved. And I think a lot of the pattern of how small groups have worked for me is that people come in new to the church and they come into small groups. And then from small groups, they kind of get a little hint of where everyone is serving, which is why it's important to serve because people take a look.
You're making those connections. I knew somebody that came to this church for a while, at least 6 months. And after 6 months, they were gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured it out. They never stepped up to serve. They never
Right.
got hooked up in a small group. And
Speaking of serving, though, Marianne, can you, I think sometimes people get a little bit scared off for serving because they're not sure what how do they actually go about getting involved and what do they have to do? What's the process if you want to serve?
if you want to serve, it's whatever your passion is. If you have a passion for kids, by all means.
Mm-hmm.
If you are not a morning person, do not step up to greet because you don't want you at the door. But but if you have a great smile and you like people, parking, Info Central, greeting. And what you do is you just go to Info Central. You can go right to Info Central after or before any service that you're here on the weekend and sign up with them. They'll get you connected. They'll give you a packet that you can fill out.
Great.
Yeah, and if you're interested in any other thing like Growth Track or any next steps, Financial Peace, Growth Track, you can go right over. There's a kiosk as you walk in or walk out the lobby, and we'd be happy to hook you up there in a group or a small group or.
That's awesome.
It's a great way to get connected. I know, like, when you first go to, like, a college or even when you first go to high school, they say, like, you're not going to make any friends if you don't get connected. And that's the first thing they want to do is sign you up for a club or for a sports team. And it's the same thing with church. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I have, like, not an official rule with my small group, but they all know, like, if you want to hang out with Nicole, you have to serve.
Yeah.
Because I'm
It's
at
funny-
church.
It's funny that you said that because my son had, when he was in college, the college that he went to, they actually believed in small groups. Their classes were like 8 or 9 people, and they met as a group. And not only like they bounced things off each other. It wasn't like they sat in circles are better than rows. So
Yeah,
they sat in
right.
circles. I mean, we say
Yeah.
that here: circles are better than rows. They sat in circles. They bounced off each other, and they also used other campuses to get some of their work done. So not other campuses, but I mean other schools, other colleges in the area, and they sort of work together.
Yeah,
So
that's-
working
that's
together,
really awesome.
they really, really want you to get connected because they don't want you to get lost in the crowd.
Exactly. And I
And
think,
same here,
Yeah.
same thing.
And, learning to serve is such a great way to get closer to Christ.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
all right.
we have a question right here.
Oh, we have a question. We have a question. What is the minimum age to serve?
I would say around 12. What would you say, Nicole?
I mean, I know for our kids' rooms, we get a lot of junior volunteers, is what we call them. And I think if they're under 12, they can serve with their parents. We say, like, you can hang out with whoever is serving and just be an assistant. But we have a lot of 12 and overs, like 12 to 15, who are amazing in our rooms. Because the
Yeah.
kids look at them and they do such a great job with just being organized and being attentive to detail. I think some of my volunteers who pay the most attention to the small details and like who can really connect with some children who other volunteers struggle to connect with are our younger ones. They're really awesome.
Right. And we also have some 12 and 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds who serve in media
Oh, yeah.
and can
Mhm.
do a camera. I
Yep.
mean, that's like their specialty.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Like being able to talk to you guys.
Well, thank you for joining us, you guys.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining us on the deep end. And next week, you'll have your
Beard man.
Your
bearded
Tim
man
back. Pastor Tim. Your Pastor Tim will be back next week.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Deep End Podcast. We pray that you continue to grow in your faith and that you would serve and support your local church. If you don't already have a church home, we invite you to join us this weekend at Waters Church. We are located at 57 John Deach Square in North Attleboro, Massachusetts. And you can join us every Saturday at 4 p.m. and Sunday mornings at 9:30 and 11:30 a.m. Make sure to stay tuned in for next week's episode of the Deep End Podcast.